Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on the weTHRIVE podcast, where I have the opportunity of interviewing entrepreneurs from around the world about how they're creating an impactful legacy. And my name is Casey Clark, and I also own C. Clark Consulting. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing my dear friend, Michelle Nusum Smith. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Casey. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, indeed. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Do you want to know about me personally or as an entrepreneur?
Both.
Um, okay, well, I am a natural entrepreneur. I think I've been entrepreneurial all my life. I'm also a bit of a nerd. I read the encyclopedia for fun and also took advanced grammar in college for fun. So that gives you an idea of what kind of nerd I am. But my company is The Word Woman LLC. And I started my company because I'm very passionate about nonprofits, and I've spent most of my professional career in the sector. So I've been there, done that, pretty much have operated in every position. And so about 10 years ago, I decided to turn all my passion into a business and started a consultancy. I do I should say I started doing something I'm very passionate about, which is grant writing. So grant writing was my one and only service. Today we're a full service consultancy and we provide consulting, coaching, training, and work with organizations from just getting started through organizations that have been around for many, many years, but need some support to leverage all that passion with best practices.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And I'm very familiar with some of the work that you do, and I love watching that and your nonprofit coffee chats and all that stuff. So it's fun watching your journey. You're welcome. So as you know, the name of our podcast is called We Thrive. So what does that word thrive mean to you?
So thrive for me means continuous progress, enjoying whatever you're working on or seeking to achieve, and that you're doing it with joy. That it's not just about the work, but it's about the experience that you're having while you're doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Thriving in, just about anything in any area of your life, as long as you're getting joy out of it, I think that's most important.
I love that. So what are some resources that you've used as you have continued to bring joy into your life and thrive?
Okay, well, I would say, so a lot of times people ask me, well, where did you get the name of your business, The Word Woman? And oftentimes people will say, is it about the Bible? Well, I'm a Christian and I believe that my faith does guide me in many ways. And I pray a lot, and I seek guidance, and use affirmations and just being inspired by other entrepreneurs like yourself, and seeing what folks are doing. And I think that also, looking at doing this continuous self-assessment around, is this bringing me joy? Am I feeling effective in what I'm doing? And when I like to spend a lot of time, I'm a Googler. And I'm at a certain point in my life where I'm up at night when no one else is. And so a lot of times I do a lot of like reading articles and things like that, to help me when I'm thinking through like my business or even in my personal life, different issues or opportunities that I want to take advantage of. I do a lot of article reading, and I don't necessarily have a particular place to go. I'm a Gemini, so I'm all over the place.
All right. So what obstacles have you had to overcome as you continue to thrive personally and professionally?
So I am a recovering people pleaser. So that is I think, a major obstacle that I have had to overcome both personally and professionally. I'm a firm believer in self-care and self-love and self-respect. And I've had to grow in all those areas in my life. I also have had to learn to let go a little bit. I have control issues, particularly when it relates to my business, because much like the nonprofit founders that I work with, I see my business as my baby, and I'm very protective of the word woman. And so learning that as I grow my business, I have to learn to um, be open to allowing other people to do things that, yes, I can do it. Because I'm sure you might relate that as an entrepreneur in the early days, you have to do it all.
Yep.
And so over the course of time, I've learned that I'm in my own way. That if I don't trust that, pray about it and then trust that it's going to work out, and that there are learning opportunities that will come with that, the growing pains of was over, and trusting that someone else can get it done. So I would say my biggest obstacle in my business has been me.
I appreciate your honesty.
I'm right now. I'm here to help somebody, so.
I love it.
But yeah, I would definitely say that in each season of growth and evolution in my business and in my own personal development, it's been recognizing that I have a lot of control in areas that it's very easy for us to say, well, it's out of my control. And so I'm reacting. And so recognizing, and I've had, other mentors and other business owners and folks to help me to discover some of those things, right? But once I've just recognized that I'm in my own way, I push past the discomfort and recognize that in order for me to get where I want to go, I'm going to have to hand over things and trust that other people will do a good job. They might not do it the way I would do it, but they'll do a good job.
Yes, that is one lesson I think we all have to learn in business. I mean, like you said, when we get started, it's, you're just doing everything. You're wearing every hat in the business. And then it's like, okay, it's that fear of like, once I let it go, is it going to be done right? And then for me, it's like, now that I've let it go, I don't want it back.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like a constant struggle, but hey, it comes with the territory. So yeah, it's funny. I reflect back to the conversation that we had, I believe it was at Starbucks, about your website, and you were like,
oh yeah,
control issues. And I was like, okay, like let's work through this.
And you did a wonderful job on my website.
Thanks. And you made it out on the other side. So.
I did. And I get lots of compliments, and I'm good. So yeah, good. Thank you for helping me through that difficulty.
You are very welcome. So speaking of helping others, talk to me a little bit about what legacy means to you and how you're creating a legacy.
Interesting. So I think about my, just as an individual, as a person, I think about my lessons learned and my life experiences, and my daughter, I try very much. I have a 27-year-old, and I look at her life, and I look at, the life decisions that she's made and the lessons learned, and, ebbs and flows of being a young woman in this new millennium. Is still new, I don't know. And so I think when I look at her and I look at how much she's achieved, despite being a spoiled brat growing up, how much I've grown myself, and I see her life and I see what she's doing and what she's learned from me as part of my legacy. I also I think about all the different organizations that I work with, and one thing I often tell folks when it comes to nonprofits is that you're creating something that will likely outlive you. And I think about, these small organizations, these brand new organizations, and even some of the ones that have been around for a while, and how I have used my skills and my talents to give them the support that they need to position their organizations to make the impact that they want to make. And so I see as part of my legacy the life-changing work of the organizations I work with, that they're clients who I'll never meet, who I'll never know personally what each of these organizations have been able to do for them or for their communities, that because I exist and because my business exists and because of work that I've done with them, that I'm part of that story. I'm part of that longer term impact, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like you said, there's no way that you'll ever know, who you're impacting, because it just keeps going and going, through each organization. And I think that's pretty awesome. I mean, I've expressed to you that, I'd like to start a nonprofit, and just to look at something on a well, I say small, but like just a single nonprofit, and to know that you deal with dozens and dozens, like I just can't imagine how many people you've impacted. So that is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a passion of mine. It's such a blessing because I feel like when you're living your purpose, it doesn't feel like work. Now, don't get me wrong. There are moments when I'm like pulling my hair out, but like you talked about with, doing the nonprofit coffee chat. So I started doing that almost 2 years ago. And it was because I would often get folks reaching out to me, "Oh, Michelle, would you like to meet for coffee? Let's meet for coffee." And I would put in the calendar, Casey chat, coffee chat with Casey. And then I was like, this is not sustainable to just keep having all these one-offs. And so I thought, well, how can I be helpful to a lot of people and let them pick my brain, so to speak, and do it in a way that's efficient and effective. And so I prayed about it, went to sleep. I woke up the next morning with a nonprofit coffee chat. I put a little event together and said it's free. Whoever shows up, shows up. And we've been doing it for almost 2 years, every Tuesday at 8 a.m. And we were meeting in person, but since COVID, we've been doing it virtually, which has been its own blessing because here we are in Frederick. So oftentimes the only people who were coming, I would occasionally get people who would come maybe from Montgomery County or Baltimore, but for the most part, it was just local organizations and volunteers and the like. But we've had folks all the way from New Mexico, Connecticut, New York, Texas, Chicago, and it's because you can get on this virtual phone call, and it's supposed to be 1 hour, but it almost never is. And so I think about that as another way that I have been able to live my purpose in a way that's fun and enjoyable for both me and the people who participate. And I'm getting up crack of dawn every Tuesday morning, but I love doing it. It's very energizing for the rest of the day, the rest of the week.
Yeah. Yeah, as you know, I have a standing meeting during that time on Tuesdays, but I've always wanted to come and just like, I love listening to you talk. Like you always have such good nuggets to share. So one day.
Yeah, you'll pop in when you can, and it's because it's intentionally informal. So there's no planned agenda. There's no like, you got to get on at this time or you're going to miss out on introducing yourself or something. Mm-hmm. It's very intentionally informal. We talk about all kinds of stuff, mostly nonprofit, but sometimes we talk about stuff that's nothing to do with nonprofits at all. And there are several people, a good handful of people who are what I call my regulars, who pretty much every Tuesday they're on. And one time I had a conflict and I couldn't do the call. And I told them it was canceled, but like 4 of them got on anyway. and they had their own coffee chat. So
That
it
is
was
so
a really nice
awesome.
thing for me. I was like, okay, well now I know I don't actually have to ever cancel it. You guys will get on and do your thing. So
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
yeah.
So speaking of the nuggets that you give people and allowing them to pick your brain, what nuggets do you have for anyone who might be thinking about starting a business or even a nonprofit?
Okay, well, so it's interesting because one of the things that I always like to talk to folks about is the fork in the road. And so when it comes to starting a business, and it's really important to understand that when you start a nonprofit, just like when you start a for-profit, you're starting a business. And each one of them has best practices, has rules, guidance that you should be complying with. And one thing that's really important to understand is that when you start a for profit business, you're starting something that you own, you possess it, it's yours. When you start a nonprofit, you're starting something that you will never own, you will never have autonomous control over. And so it really is important that you're thinking about, I'm starting something that's bigger than me, something that will likely have an impact long after I'm gone, and do that self-assessment to figure out, is that really what are you willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears sometimes that it will take to grow a thriving nonprofit when it's something that you won't own? And a lot of people say yes to that, which is wonderful because they make a huge impact on the world. But if that's not for you, if you're thinking, no, I want to own it, it's mine, then you should start a for-profit business and just recognize that that's the fork in the road.
I
Because I
love
often talk to people who start a nonprofit and then realize that they should have started a for-profit, or vice versa. They'll start a for-profit and then realize that this model doesn't actually work for the business that I want to, the impact that I want to make, and who I want to help.
Yeah. Wow. That's very true. And I could go on a whole tangent about partnerships and everything else because as you know, I have both and it's a different animal. And, I'm seeing that with the nonprofit too. So that's great, that you help people navigate that.
Thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I'm all about protecting the sector. It's funny because I used to describe myself as, I'm the consultant who will have you in tears because I'm going to tell you what you need to hear versus what you want to hear. And recently I had a phone call with a catch-up call with a former client, and he says, Michelle, you're the kind of consultant who will love up on you and then kick you in your teeth because you need it. I was like, well, I don't mean to kick people in the teeth, but he goes, no, I know that it's all in love. I'm like, well, I want to make sure you're doing it right. And sometimes it means telling you what you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
In order for us to get your organization where it needs to be, and also to protect the sector, because I often say that when it comes to for-profit businesses, a for-profit like an Enron or whatever can do something terrible. They go down in history as being awful, but they're judged as a single entity. When a nonprofit does something wrong, it's the entire sector. We're all bad, we're all whatever. And so it's really important that we recognize that whatever we're doing as a nonprofit is not only impacting our organization, but it's really going to have an impact, good or bad or indifferent, on the full sector. So
Wow.
I could go on and on too. Did I mention I was passionate about nonprofits?
That's a really good point though. Like, I mean, I guess I didn't even realize that. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah. Wow. So is there anything else that you have a burning desire to share?
Well, I would say that, I think it's just really important, especially during this season, dealing with the pandemic and everything, that people recognize that there is always an opportunity, there's always potential, and that those of us who are willing to be nimble, be flexible, to be open and recognize that, we need to evolve just as whether it's a pandemic, the economy, whatever, that evolution is how we stand this game. And so just because you've never done it before doesn't mean you shouldn't give it a try.
Absolutely. Keep moving forward.
That's it. Keep moving forward.
I love that. Well, it has definitely been a pleasure interviewing you today. I always love chatting with you. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Casey. I'm so honored that you would give me this opportunity.
Absolutely. And I'd also like to thank our music sponsor, Stephen Lamar Moore, who created the music for our podcast. So thank you very much, Michelle. And we'll be sharing your podcast on all social media channels and on YouTube, so people will be able to catch up with you and learn more about the Word Woman.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you again. And enjoy your holiday season and make sure you're safe and socially distant.
Yes. Yes, indeed.